Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where we chat with startup founders and solopreneurs just like you from all over the globe. During our chat today, picture yourself starting your own startup journey. If our guests can do it, you can too. Every episode of Rising Tide Startups is sponsored by Podbrand Media. Let Podbrand create and host your company branded podcast. Learn more at podbrandmedia.com. This is Rising Tide Startups, and my name is Kevin Pruitt, and this is a really unique episode because this is the longest gap we have ever had since we started January 1, 2018 between episodes. And it was very much intentional on my part because I decided to take virtually April and May off, and also retired from my day job and on May 15th. So I've just been kind of chilling this month. And you know what? I had an opportunity to talk to our guest today, and I thought, hey, let's get this rolling. So I want to introduce you to Giuseppe Grammatico. Giuseppe, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
It's an honor to be invited on the show. Looking forward to it. And congrats. Prior to talking, I didn't realize that you just retired. So maybe asking you for some advice down the road.
Well, I can give you advice on how to sit on your back deck and listen to birds sing. So
that works. Yeah,
that for sure. But man, if you and I met at a networking event, how would you introduce yourself to me?
The way I normally kind of go through what I do is basically, if you've ever worked with an executive recruiter to help you find that job, I do the exact same thing, but in the franchising space. You know, we look for criteria, skill sets. There's no charge for our service, which is really nice. And we help you find your perfect franchise. And that's probably the easiest way to explain what we do.
So, man, you've already opened up the proverbial can of worms here. I mean, no business operates without revenue. So how does the service itself generate revenue if there's no fee for the service? Is it from the franchises themselves?
Right. So just like so an executive recruiter will get paid a referral fee from the company. So we get a refer. So we directly from the franchise company get a referral fee. So there's no cost to anyone that we work with. So that's the beauty of what we do.
So I want to go down memory lane here a little bit before we really dive into the meat of the matter here. But so I think you mentioned in a previous episode that you grew up around an Italian restaurant in central New Jersey or something like that. Mm-hmm. So tell me how one gets from there to, oh, by the way, I'm the franchise guru here.
Yeah, it's a funny story. So I had the opportunity to grow up I didn't consider it an opportunity then, but way back when, bussing tables, my family owned the restaurant, eventually helped
character
start
building.
Cooking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those where you kind of, you appreciate it later in life. But bus tables and helped at the restaurant. I cooked, I helped manage, and which was great. But I knew that this wasn't the type of business I wanted to be. A lot of employees. We had to work nights, weekends, holidays, catering orders on Christmas Eve, and I said, I don't want that type of business down the road. So first family to go, first family member to go to college. So I decided to go that route. Was introduced at an early age to our financial advisor. So I said, you know what, that seems to be really interesting, and got my Series 7 at the age of 19, still in college. So really early age, got the exposure, did well, had different jobs, financial advisor, wholesaler selling to financial advisors. And at the end of the day, the job was cool, liked it, made some money, but hated the corporate environment, hated the politics. My career was, based off my manager's opinion on me and how
Absolutely.
They felt. So, fast forward, I said, okay, I don't like the corporate route. Tried a bunch of different positions. I don't want a restaurant. But I want a business. And I, Googling and searching online, found a franchise coach and consultant, and said, the franchise space is an option. And I said, well, I don't want to own a Subway. And they said, well, Subway, there's thousands of other companies out there. And fast forward 2007, purchased my first franchise, 2008, my second, and sold all my businesses, had a nice exit in 2020, right before kind of COVID hit, and became during that time, prior to that sale, became a franchise coach. And now I help people along their their journey and figuring out if a business is right for them.
So go back to the early 2000s when you're kind of looking into this and you're thinking, okay, I could either be a house cleaning service, I could be a painting service, I could be I'm assuming most of them are kind of in the service space, or maybe it was half and half. Maybe it was service space, retail space. What were some of the criterion that you were going through your mind early that said, "Hey, here's the checklist that's it's got to meet this checklist."
Right. Yeah, so my coach challenged me and said, put all your, your head trash and opinions aside. We're going to start kind of clean slate. We're going to start from the very beginning. I don't know the number at that time, but I know currently there's about 4,000 franchise companies in the US, every industry. We'll call it 50-50, half retail, half home base service types of businesses. So to really like where do you even start? So he said, well, what do you want the business to look like? Let's talk about the widget or the service. I said, I really don't care what the service or product is. I don't need to be passionate about it. I just want it to make money, and I want systems to be put in place. But the big one, the R word, as you call it, recession resistant. That was the one
Hmm.
that, the very first characteristic. And that really kind of scaled down the list. I wanted something that did well in up and down markets. We saw what happened in 07, 08. So coming from financial services, I said, okay, we need something recession resistant with few employees, that had under a $200,000 investment. And that just assuming there was 4,000 companies, that really scaled it down to about a
Yeah.
dozen that were available in my
Mhm.
market, because I'm in New Jersey, central New Jersey. So needed to make sure that the franchise had availability. So that 4,000 number really got scaled down to 12 we ended up talking with a total of 5, I believe. So yeah, it was, getting very specific, and that's what I coach a lot of my candidates. What does the ideal business look like? And then we figure out kind of what's available in your space.
So you've answered a question that I love to ask, at the end of a lot of episodes, if it fits the kind of the tenor of the conversation. But I have a theory about like entrepreneurial DNA
Mhm.
that, some people are just born with this kind of extra gear in their mind where, it's the adage that if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You just look like you're always seeing opportunities out there. But I also um, subscribe a little bit to the side that says, you know what, I think it's important that you care about what the product is, because you're going to hit a dip, as kind of the Seth Godin, concept that says when you're in that dip, when you're in that trough,
Right.
what's going to drag you out? Is it going to drag you out because you are just making revenue? Is it going to drag you out because you really like, the concept of the business itself? When you coach people, you're not wired that way. Obviously, you're just like, it doesn't matter what it's product agnostic. So
100%. Yeah.
what do you find that normally to be true, or do you think that people actually need to care about the product itself?
Yeah, so I'm not saying, you still have to believe in the product. You have to still believe there is a market for that service or the product itself. But this is where people, I think, get tripped up, and including myself, is that you have to be passionate about the product. I think it's a myth, and it's a quick path to failure in many cases. And I know
Uh-huh.
that's a very strong statement to make. I will use the example of myself. I was a video gamer in high school and college, love video games. And I broke in. It was very hard on the East Coast, but I hammered every gaming company, got in, got my internship. That was the quickest path to kill my passion of video gaming. Absolutely haven't played a handful of games since, just because my son or kids wanted to play. So I believe passion is something where the business allows you the time. So my other passion is
Hmm.
soccer. It gives us the time to go to my Red Bulls games up in northern New Jersey. I don't think you have to be passionate about it, but I think you have to have a belief in it, because the passion of video games or soccer, well, what systems, what business is going to be put in place to allow me the time to actually take the time off with the
Hmm.
family and go to those events. So, on the other side, you have to believe that there's a demand for the product. If you don't believe in the product
Yep.
at all, obviously that's going to be an issue. But one of the questions we ask is status. Are you okay? Does it have to be a high-end, restaurant that we've heard of, McDonald's, the Chick-fil-A's of the world? Or are you okay owning a profitable water and smoke and mold restoration business?
Hmm.
Would you be embarrassed telling a family member? Now, you're not necessarily doing the work, but in conversation. So you need to do a gut check. There's no gut check. There's no right or wrong, but you need to really figure out if you're going to be bothered by it. Maybe it isn't going to be a good fit. But
Hmm.
if you're okay with it, then absolutely explore and kind of see what's out there. Going with an open mind is the best advice I give to everyone.
So what were the first couple of franchises that you dove into?
Yeah, so we looked at restoration. There wasn't much availability in my market, so we passed on that. Back in the day, just some of the brands were coming up, and I just felt in a down market, people would not get massages, and I was wrong by that. It's not a regret, but I was wrong. I did not. I kind of thought people would cut back and use that money for groceries, but people got massages. I will tell you that. I know people personally that didn't stop at all. But we got into the company was sold years ago, but in building services, it was a company that had reoccurring model. So we maintained buildings, we did painting, we did floor restoration, we did cleaning, we ordered liners for our clients and toilet paper and things like that. So it was a business that had reoccurring revenue streams. There was a number. There was 20 plus services that we offered, and when '08 hit, we pivoted our business and we said a lot of industries got hit hard. Some companies were closing, so we doubled down on healthcare and service companies like that were in healthcare, dialysis, surgery centers,
Hmm.
and things like that. That you needed the specialized training, the insurance and bonding, and everything else that went along with it in order to provide services for those types of facilities. So we looked at a lot. There were a few others. We looked at a coaching business, I guess an employment recruitment business. Just this one felt right, just because of for me it was recession resistant, the number of revenue streams, and it was reoccurring.
Yeah.
People needed the service
Yep.
every month, so that's why we got into the business.
When you've pivoted to more like franchise coaching and executive, and recruiting for franchise, potential franchisees, when you reach out to franchises with your service, are they generally receptive? Do they completely understand that, what you're doing and they need that service? Or are they like, actually we're getting 1,000 inquiries a week. We don't need this service. What's been the general response from franchises?
It's mixed. We some franchises aren't there yet. They're doing everything in house. They're doing their own paid ads and lead gen, and that's completely fine. We're taking care of all of that for them. So we'll do our own lead generation, and we'll make sure franchising. You need to have. We always say at least 50,000 liquid, 150 net worth. If you don't hit those requirements, franchising may not be the right fit at this point in time. Maybe it is at a later time. So we helped them sift through. We were talking with a client years ago, and they were getting thousands of leads. They couldn't just keep up with the lead flow, but most of them were looking at states they were not offered in, right?
Hmm.
Because some franchise are only offered in certain states, and others the financial requirements were not being met by those individuals submitting the form. So yeah, so we have two full-time staff. That's all they do is they talk with franchise companies. They're very receptive. Not everyone, again, utilizes our services, but we also are selective in who we contact. We want to
Yeah.
make sure that number one, if either it'll be outreach or someone contacting our company and figuring out, do you have systems in place? Are you national? Do you have room for growth? And then our back office will actually speak with the founders and speak with random franchisees, reviewing their documents to make sure that there aren't any kind of legal issues where every franchise owner is failing or not doing
Hmm.
well. So it doesn't take the place of the due diligence, but it is a major pre-screen so we can work with a much more manageable number of franchise brands.
And I'm assuming that if you're vetting a franchise and they look good on paper, and you find out later that, hey, this is just kind of smoke and mirrors here, that they would quickly be blacklisted, from your service. Or are you doing that kind of diligence on the front end that just says, hey, I'm not going to recommend you for anything that we wouldn't do ourselves?
Yeah, so once they pass the pre-screen, we'll tell each and every one of our candidates, you are still responsible for your own due diligence,
Right.
especially the local market, right? You got to talk to franchise owners. We can't predict what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10, but we want you to do a deep dive, make sure the fit is there. But yes, our back office, if they're hearing negative feedback from franchise owners, ourselves, they constantly stay in touch with each and every franchise. And in some cases, yes, they have said, you know what? We no longer feel like this is a good fit. A year later, they completely changed the system, completely changed the service offering. So yes, it would be time for either another pre-screen or to eliminate them from a brand that we would recommend.
Right. You mentioned kind of the floor, of resources that somebody needs to get into this. Would be maybe the floor if you're keeping in mind, like I want this to be my full-time gig. So what should people be prepared to bring to the table, I guess, if they're saying, you know what, this is not just, trying to pay my mortgage on the side here, or give me a vacation money or something. This is really something that I want to step out of that cubicle and jump into this, full time in the next 12 months. What kind of financial outlay should we expect?
Yeah, so the floor doesn't change. 50 liquid, 50,000 liquid, 150 net worth. We don't know everyone's situation. So the way I would answer that is, have 6 months living expense. So when you look at a franchise, and this is actually, you know, there's different options to fund the franchise. So number one, an SBA loan, and we won't touch on them all, but just kind of the main ones. Government-backed loan, about 20% down. We'll keep it simple, and you'll get funding for the rest. Keep in mind, you have to make those note payments, and you'll put that into your pro forma. You can also use, if you left your employer and are running it full time, you can use your retirement rollover. Most people don't know you could do that. It's rollover business startup. You're able to use a traditional IRA, old 401k, not a Roth IRA, and you're able to set up a C corp and buy shares in that business. So there are ways to fund this, but at the end of the day, everyone's financials are different. I started before the kids were born. My wife was working. I quit my job just because I completely hated my job. So we had to, it wasn't eating out. There wasn't vacations that first year. You may have to kind of slow things down a little bit on the lifestyle, but have 6 months. If you are single, you're the only income earner in the home, go into your finances. Do you have enough to pay the mortgage every month for the next 3 to 6? What about your student loans, your utility bill? Average that out. And then that will also factor in what kind of loan you'll need for the business. So take a look at those numbers, but don't put yourself in the spot where 1 or 2 months in, you're all of a sudden you have no money for marketing, no money for the mortgage. You're going to fail. It had nothing to do with the franchise. It had to do with preparation,
Yep.
and no one can do that except for you. So.
And I mean, I guess expected cash flow early, I mean, it takes a while to ramp it up, even existing, franchises that are, going concerns. I mean, it would take, certainly has a runway that you got to build up to, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the type of business, if you do a home service business, so you're doing roofing, cleaning, mosquito spraying, water and smoke restoration, you're up and running in 1 to 3 months. So you're up and running. You're literally sign the agreement, go to training, and you're up and running quick. I'm not saying you're making a profit or revenue out the gate, but you usually have turnkey marketing and a call center. So they are, believe it or not, marketing before you open the doors so that you do have appointments on the calendar day one. When you get into brick and mortar, obviously now the length of time kind of spreads out a little bit more, because I'd say anything retail, you're getting into a shopping center, factor a year. You pay the franchise fee now, factor in just about a year to get open. But prior to that, the franchisor is going to work with you to figure out, for example, a fitness franchise, a boutique fitness. You're going to need, based off your expense and what you're paying for rent and things like that, you may need 50 members to break even. So that those pre-sales will try to get you to those 50 plus members so that you're cash flow positive day one, which is great. But keep in mind, from signing the agreement to opening, there may be a year gap. So
Yeah.
you may want to keep the job until you open, or you keep the job and run the business simultaneously with the manager, and then eventually start to scale away and run the business full time and leave the employer.
And now here's a quick word from one of our new sponsors on Rising Tide Startups. Every episode of Rising Tide Startups is sponsored by Pod Brand Media. So you started your own company or branded podcast, and now it's fading. Let Pod Brand give it new life. Check out podbrandmedia.com to learn more. Well, this is a really, I guess, an opportune time here to kind of do a little role play, you
Sure.
know. So, I know this old guy that retired 4 days ago, that maybe talking to you on the the, magic box here right now. But so if I come to you and I say, okay, I got 50 grand, I've got 6 month runway, so. But I really don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I would like something pretty turnkey, want something that is just kind of, operates by itself type thing. Um, how would you coach, a retiree or somebody that's getting close to that? How would you coach them? They're not looking for another job. They just left a job that they really enjoyed, so I'm not looking for another job. But what does it look like from a standpoint of, are there franchises out there that you're just like, yeah, these pretty much operate on their own?
Yeah, I mean, some of them, it depends on, where you're located. So we would scan kind of the market for availability. And then the biggest part is going to be your role. What's your role in the business? So, for example, a flooring business has nothing to do with flooring. A lot of our flooring franchises are marketing and sales engines that happen to be in the flooring space. So your role initially, and if you were open to it, and this is part of the matchmaking, is you're in the flooring space. The systems are in place, the marketing's done for you, the call center, everything is done for you, but you have to be okay going on warm appointments daily for the first 6 to 12 months. Learn the business, learn how to sell, get some revenue in before hiring that person to kind of replace you, so
Mm-hmm.
you can take more of a management role. Those are great because those businesses are lean. You don't have a lot of individuals, and you have a mobile showroom. Other brands, for example, you could run it part time, would be in the window covering space. You may need a manager in place, and that's going to increase the investment, because now you have
Right.
a general manager salary. So you factor in the first 3 months or so of salary in there. You have to be. Are you okay being part time in the very beginning, but relinquishing, those tasks, those responsibilities to that general manager, and allowing them to kind of run the show, so that you're meeting in the evenings, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that everything is being taken care of. So I gave you two completely different examples, and it comes down to what your preference is. I tell everyone, if you can run it full time, I would ramp it up on your own. No one's going to run the business like you.
Yep.
So I would run it full
Yep.
time for the first 6 to 12 months. In that time, learn the business, find the staff, so that builder year where you're reinvesting everything, then you could take it, starting the second year, take a step back and have everyone in place and enjoy the kids, the grandkids, or whatever you're into, golfing or hanging out by the beach. But getting those systems in place and learning it, because that is the quickest way to learn the business, and no one's going to run it like you, unfortunately.
So you mentioned the dreaded soccer word, the as the Europeans call it, football. So
Yeah.
do you have a Serie A team that you really support?
Yes, I don't follow them as much lately because they've removed it from every channel I have. I have to now subscribe to another channel, but I've been a lifelong Juventus fan. So
I was
uh,
going to guess Juve. That's the one that just, I don't know why, I just had this like mental picture of these black and white
it's the black,
stripes, and
it's the hair,
it is.
the black and white. But yeah, I've always been a fan, and because of that, my son's a fan. But yeah, if we can find the game, MLS Red Bulls, we're in New Jersey, so we'll go there. My son's going to school in Philly now, so we may be going to the Philadelphia Union games. But I won't gonna maybe cheat on my team a little bit, but it is what it is.
Yes, I get it. I get it. We lived in Western Europe for like 9 years.
Oh
So
wow.
my son played soccer in a number of different places, and yeah, he was sadly a Man United fan, and I was a sad Newcastle fan, but yeah, we did enjoy it. And crazy enough,
because I would get Italian soccer when we lived in the UK. I would get that free, and so I
Okay.
started cheering for Sampdoria. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but yeah, it was a different time and different era for sure. But
And
and
it's a different style
yeah,
of soccer too. It's
it
like,
is different
you
style
know,
for
it's just
sure.
not one better, just a different, different way of playing. So it's
There is
interesting.
no doubt about it. I mean, it's probably as close to the Brazilian beautiful game as you can get in Europe. But I had a question earlier when you were talking, and you thought, you were saying, hey, it could be this franchise idea, or whatever. But I'm wondering, because you are always thinking in this space, do you see like individual mom and pop type businesses that, they really have got this dialed in, you think, my gosh, that would make such a good franchise. Do you ever try to coach like small concerns into saying, hey, have you ever thought about franchising?
We probably get it used to be a call a week, maybe every other week now, where someone is asking, we have a great concept, we want to franchise it. And um, an area that I know a lot about, but just given, that my time constraints, we'll talk high level of kind of what to expect. And I'll refer them to a few companies that specialize in that space. You'll hear the word franchise consultant on that side of the business as well.
Hmm.
That's why I try to call myself a franchise coach, not to confuse the terms. But yeah, there's a lot of, what I tell people, and for anyone listening that's in the same boat, is that when you convert your mom and pop business, your bakery, to a franchise, you're no longer in the bakery business.
Yep.
You are coaching franchisees, business owners, an extension of your brand across the entire country. Your roles are going to change. It is the quickest path to growth. I'm not saying it is easy, but
Hmm.
they're investing.
Yep.
You have to make sure that the system is being followed. You're offering coaching services from people that have all different backgrounds. So the one thing I tell people is figure out who your franchise avatar is. Who is the ideal person? A bakery owner is not going to have anything to do with baking. They have to be great at networking, great at managing staff and things like that, and open to following a process. Those individuals will do well.
Thinking back just in your business career, who would you say has had the biggest impact in just leading you or managing you or being setting an example for you to follow type thing? Who would, if you had to pick a mentor, a golden mentor, who would it be?
It's split down the middle. So I got exposed on QVC at an early age to Tony Robbins. I wouldn't say he's my mentor, but he opened up my kind of ways of thinking, limiting beliefs. Got into Jim Rohn and a few others. So that was really kind of something that opened me up and saying, "Wow, there's so much more that I'm capable of." So that was kind of on the one side. It was Tony Robbins, which led me to all those others. As far as a direct mentor, it had to be my parents.
Hmm.
They came over from Italy without speaking the language and without any money, and had a successful restaurant for 40 years. When I used to complain about school or work, he said, "We came here with nothing." So the bar was set extremely high for me. So it's like, wow, if they had no education, no money, didn't even speak the language, and had a successful restaurant, for me, I kind of said, well, there's no excuse for me to fail, and I can run any business. Didn't matter
Yep.
what the business was. I can make it work. So, again, didn't appreciate it at the time, but I always tell my parents now that I'm older, approaching 50, that I appreciate it. It's because of them, and not necessarily what they said, but what they did also
Hmm.
really helped shape who I am today.
I can certainly appreciate that, and I think our stories would be pretty similar. I don't know that I would head to Tony Robbins or not, but certainly in that space of people that just kind of stretch your mind into thinking in
That,
ways
yeah.
that you hadn't thought of before. And
Napoleon Hill, like it led me to Think and
yeah,
Grow Rich.
yeah.
And it's like, wow, I'm like, this is amazing. I wish I had exposure to this sooner, but
Mm.
my QVC tapes broke from Tony Robbins and I had to upgrade to CD and now it's all digital. But I listened to him so many times, it literally snapped. It was the funniest thing.
Yeah, I really appreciate just the kind of the circular conversation we've had today. We've touched on so many different things. I can't think of a better way to wrap up today than you to just speak directly to our listeners and just have like a mini coaching session right now that just assume that they are at least just willing to consider dipping my toe into franchise space, how would you kind of start the conversation with them?
Yeah, so a lot of people that I talk to in my audience on our show they're sitting in a cubicle, miserable, don't know kind of what to do, don't think they have any ideas. And my job is we have nothing to sell. Our job is really education, that you do have options. And with the amount of content out there, I know it's overwhelming. So don't worry about the how. Throw the how out. It doesn't matter the business, it doesn't matter how you're going to get there. If you want change and you know that corporate America is not for you, you know that that job, it just, you don't like it, you're miserable there. Figure out, simply put, and you don't need help with this, you could do it on your own. What does your ideal life look like? What are you doing day to day in your business? Now, assuming we all know the first year of business is difficult, but after that first year, what are you doing? Are you just going to Chamber of Commerce events? Are you networking? Are you doing sales? Are you traveling all over the world? Write it all out. And then I'm a big believer in who, not how. You talk to someone that has a successful business, someone like myself that can talk to you around and figure out if franchising is the right fit. But don't worry about how to get there. Just know that you need a change and what the ideal situation looks like. And someone like myself or a colleague or someone else can really help you, figure out if the fit's there. Get your financials in order as well. A business is not, this isn't a 2 a.m. no money down deal. A business costs money. Franchise has a franchise fee. A startup, you're going to pay a lot more with time, and my time is valuable. So it may take you 2 years to get up and running versus a franchise could potentially get you up and running in 3 months. So, figure out your finances. And this is my Dr. Phil hat. If you're married, whoever's in the household, let them know what the heck you're up to. The quickest way to a divorce is buying a business, not telling your spouse, or going down the road of looking at a franchise and then telling your spouse or your partner or whomever what you're doing, and that causes friction. So let them know. Mom, dad, whatever the situation is, we're going to be working really hard that first year so that we don't miss any more soccer games. And that this first year we're going to need the extra help. We're going to need you to understand. We're going to need you to help with dinner and things like that. But we are doing this because of that. If you don't let the family know, they're going to think you're ignoring them or think business is more important. But I think getting everyone on the same page. And if you don't have buy-in, stop, don't pass go. Figure that part out before moving forward. It's going to save a lot of marriages and a lot of issues down the road. But you got options. You don't need millions of dollars. As I mentioned, it's not all fast food. There's plenty of dog waste. I saw one of your shows, dog waste removal and business coaching and just about anything else you can think of. Talk to someone. And if the money isn't there or the time isn't there, put together a path. I work with people saying, you know what, let's talk every 6 months. And by the end of 2027, let's figure out what that franchise looks like. That you can put a plan together.
And it's interesting because a light bulb just came on. It's not just the due diligence for the franchise itself. You're also doing due diligence on the people you're bringing to franchises that say, I've got to prepare them so that they can be the successful when they get there. What a valuable service to help people be prepared when they want to pull that trigger, so to speak.
At the end of the day, you don't buy franchises, you invest in them. And before you invest in that franchise, you have to get approved by the franchise. So if you have the funds and the know-how, the experience and everything else, but you're not coachable, you will not get approved for that franchise. So work in reverse. That's our mantra. Figure out where you want to be, what the ideal business looks like, the investment, the time frame, let the family know that. And then at the very end of the process is when we look at franchise companies. But you do have to get approved at the end of the day. And that's one thing I did a show on myths in franchising, is that the franchisor has to feel like you're a good fit for the brand as well.
No, that is so good. That is so good. Giuseppe, thank you so much for taking time today. It's been great to chat with you and meet you, virtually meet you. Wrap us up today. Just tell people where the best place to find you. I know that you literally just sent me a copy of your book, earlier today. Speak about what the book is designed to, who it's designed to help, and where people can contact you.
Absolutely. So everything goes you go to the website, GG, my initials, because my name is easy to spell, thefranchiseguide.com. All the resources are there. So if you're not ready for a chat, I wrote a book called Franchise Freedom. It's my exact blueprint in helping you find your perfect franchise. It even talks about letting the family know and getting your financials, everything we talked about today. It's a free download. You could buy it for a few bucks on Amazon, but take advantage of the free download if you're not ready. If you're more of a listener, you're on the road. We have the Franchise Freedom podcast. Again, another resource on the site. And we cover, we have close to 300 episodes covering just about every topic. And if you are ready to chat, and that's what I encourage everyone, just fast forward. We'll book a 20-minute call. As I mentioned, there's no cost for our service. We could create a plan. Is franchising the right fit? If it is, and the timing isn't right, we put together a plan. Let's talk every 6 months. Let's get the credit score to 680. Let's get the or 700. Let's get certain things in place before moving forward. We'll create a plan. It's never a silly question, never too early. We can kind of map out what things look like. And there's plenty of other resources, but those are the three things. If you're not ready to chat, the book or the podcast, you can search by topic. And looking forward to helping anyway. And by the way, we cover the entire US and Canada. We meet virtually, and your cost is 30 to 60 minutes a week of your time. And that's about it.
And thank you so much. This has been a great it's one of these episodes where I never look at the clock. I'm just like, just keep asking the questions that come to mind, and we'll just keep chatting, and we can drag this out as long as we need to, as long as that we still feel like that we're providing value here. And this we could have chatted probably another hour here with this one, but we just may have to have you on on an encore in a few months, and let's ask questions we didn't talk about. But really appreciate your time today. Thanks again. And thanks for playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Giuseppe, have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. It was fun.
We hope you heard some great takeaways and are now ready to take action yourself. As always, thank you for listening and helping all boats rise in a rising tide.